Alright, so today I'm going to be changing my chain tensioner. Chain tensioner itself is actually still okay. What happened was I kind of screwed up the threads on this thing, and I'll show you in a second. So you need a 5mm Allen head. And I know better, but I still did it anyways. I just was being lazy. So because of my laziness, end up having to get another one. The good thing is that this piece wasn't that, it's not that expensive. It's only like I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks or something like that. So that's relatively cheap. It'd be a good idea. You can either, in the tensioner itself in here, you can either use a little flathead screwdriver like this, or you could get a little piece of sheet metal and cut yourself out, with tin snips, and cut yourself out something like this. And if you have the service manual, they actually tell you to make one of these things, and you could cut it out, by the dimensions that they tell you. So this one is actually one that actually is from Honda itself, from the new one that I got. So this is the this is a new one right here. Actually, let me show you how I damaged the old one. So this hole here, that's where the nut covers it, right? This is where the adjustment is. Basically, in here there's threads, right? You see those threads, and the screwdriver is small enough to fit into that hole. But in the past, I didn't use this screwdriver. I used a bigger one, and the bigger one, the width here of the blade was wider. It's wide enough that it was actually damaging the threads. So over, because if you keep up with my videos on this bike, I've rebuilt this engine quite a few times because I was using the big bore kit and etc. etc. So I've taken this thing off quite a few times, and each time I did, I used that bigger flathead, and it was just too wide and it damaged the threads. And now basically the threads are damaged enough that nut head that I took off on here a second ago, it doesn't fit properly anymore. Because the threads are damaged. It won't tighten down because the threads are just too stripped. So what this thing does is that it acts like the screwdriver, but with these slots here, this thing will actually go in there because under the spring tension on this thing. Once you put it in there, it will actually hold its spot. So let's look at how it works. Actually, let me use the flathead to turn this easier with the handle. So the tensioner is always gonna expand and push out, on the chain tension on the chain. So when you screw it in, screw it in, there's nothing to hold it. So this thing right here will actually go in there and hold that spot. Right? It goes into the slot, so that way it doesn't spin anymore, and it holds this. Because if I take this off, it will just spin right out. Right? So hopefully that makes sense. And when you put this in, the proper way to put this in is don't just take this out and let this thing just unspin and shoot out right away. That will actually make it too tight. A lot of people that put on tensioners whenever they have to remove this thing and they put it back on, they don't do it properly, and it will actually damage your chain tensioner. Could possibly damage this, or damage the chain itself, or the chain guides. Usually the chain guides, because it's just too much tension. So usually when you put this in, I would recommend having that screwdriver and slowly letting it release out until when it hits the chain itself, or the guides, it will just kind of rest up against there, and you could just pull away from your screwdriver out. So I think that's probably the best way to do it. So in the meantime, I'm gonna take this thing off. And usually the gasket on here is metal gasket. It's usually reusable. I mean, it doesn't really get damaged, or it doesn't get messed up from being mounted. And actually, I put a new one in there more recently, so this thing only has about 500 miles on it. So even before then, the old one, with thousands of miles on it, was actually still fine. Nothing wrong with it. So, let's see, it's A-OK basically. So yeah, again, I did this myself. Instead of using the proper screwdriver or the proper tool, I used the improper tool. And that's what happens when you use the improper tool. In this case, not because I didn't have the tool, I did, but I was just lazy. So here's the old one, and it's just, that thing was just messed up. So remember, when we switch this, you're gonna reuse the gasket. So I actually have the gasket here, and we use the O-ring here. So actually, I'm gonna tension this up right now. So the tricky part is pulling that little tab off without pulling out too fast and letting the season just bolt out. If that happens, the best thing to do is to shoot. I need to wipe this thing down. The best thing to do is oops. Actually, let me grab a rag real fast and wipe this down. Let me do a part 2 on this thing. I think the video is getting long.